which quite took my gratitude by storm. My people, now reduced to 25, were as delighted at the prodigal plenitude visible on my tables and in my yard as I was myself. And as I saw their eyes light up at the unctuous anticipations presented to them by their riotous fancies, I ordered a bullock to be slaughtered and distributed. The second day of the arrival of the expedition in the country which I now looked upon as classic ground, since Captains Burton, Speke, and Grant years ago had visited it and described it, came the Arab magnates from Tabora to congratulate me. Tabora is the principal Arab settlement in Central Africa. It contains over 1,000 huts and tembes, and one may safely estimate the population, Arabs, Wangwana, and natives, at 5,000 people. Between Tabora and the next settlement, Kwihara, rise two rugged hill ridges, separated from each other by a low saddle, over the top of which Tabora is always visible from Kwihara. There is no such recognized place as Kaza. They were a fine, handsome body of men, these Arabs. They mostly hailed from Oman, others were Wasawahili, and each of my visitors had quite a retinue with him. At Tabora they live quite luxuriously. The plain on which the settlement is situated is exceedingly fertile. Though naked of trees, the rich pasturage it furnishes permits them to keep large herds of cattle and goats, from which they have an ample supply of milk, cream, butter, and ghee. Rice is grown everywhere. Sweet potatoes, yams, muhogo, holcus sorghum, maize, or Indian corn, sesame, millet, field peas, or vetches called choroko, are cheap, and always procurable. Around their tembes the Arabs cultivate a little wheat for their own purposes, and have planted orange, lemon, pawpaw, and mangoes, which thrive here fairly well. Onions and garlic, chilies, cucumbers, tomatoes, and brinjals may be procured by the white visitor from the more important Arabs, who are undoubted Epicureans in their way. Their slaves convey to them from the coast, once a year at least, their stores of tea, coffee, sugar, spices, jellies, curries, wine, brandy, biscuits, sardines, salmon, and such fine cloths and articles as they require for their own personal use. Almost every Arab of any eminence is able to show a wealth of Persian carpets, and most luxurious bedding, complete tea and coffee services, and magnificently carved dishes of tinned copper and brass lavers. Several of them sport gold watches and chains, mostly all a watch and chain of some kind, and as in Persia, Afghanistan, and Turkey, the harems form an essential feature of every Arab's household. The sensualism of the Mohammedans is as prominent here as in the Orient. The Arabs who now stood before the front door of my tembe were the donors of the good things received the day before. As in duty bound, of course I greeted Sheikh Said first, then Sheikh bin Nasib, His Highness of Zanzibar's Consul at Karagwa. Then I greeted the noblest Trojan among the Arab population, noblest in bearing, noblest in courage and manly worth, Sheikh Khamis bin Abdullah, then young Amram bin Masud, who is now making war on the king of Urori and his fractious people, then handsome, courageous Sood, the son of Said bin Majid, then dandified Thani bin Abdullah, then Musud bin Abdullah and his cousin Abdullah bin Masud, who own the houses where formerly lived Burton and Speke, then old Suleiman Dawa, Said bin Saif, and the old hetman of Tabora, Sheikh Sultan bin Ali. As the visit of these magnates, under whose loving protection white travellers must needs submit themselves, was only a formal one, such as Arab etiquette, ever of the stateliest and truest, impelled them to, it is unnecessary to relate the discourse on my health and their wealth, my thanks and their professions of loyalty and attachment to me. After having expended our mutual stock of congratulations and nonsense, they departed, having stated their wish that I should visit them at Tabora and partake of a feast which they were about to prepare for me. 3 days afterwards I sallied out of my tembe, escorted by 18 bravely dressed men of my escort, to pay Tabora a visit. On surmounting the saddle over which the road from the valley of Kwihara leads to Tabora, the plain on which the Arab settlement is situated lay before us, one expanse of dun pasture land, stretching from the base of the hill on our left as far as the banks of the northern Gombe, which a few miles beyond Tabora heave into purple-coloured hills and blue cones. Within 3/4 of an hour we were seated on the mud verandah of the tembe of Sultan bin Ali, who, because of his age, his wealth, and his position, being a colonel in Said Burghash's unlovely army, is looked upon by his countrymen high and low as a referee and counsellor. His boma or enclosure contains quite a village of hive-shaped huts and square tembes. From here, after being presented with a cup of mocha coffee and some sherbet, we directed our steps towards Khamis bin Abdullah's house, who had in anticipation of my coming prepared a feast to which he had invited his friends and neighbours. The group of stately Arabs in their long white dresses and jaunty caps, also of a snowy white, who stood ready to welcome me to Tabora, produced quite an effect on my mind. I was in time for a council of war they were holding, and I was requested to attend. Khamis bin Abdullah, a bold and brave man, ever ready to stand up for the privileges of the Arabs and their rights to pass through any countries for legitimate trade, is the man who, in Speke's Journal of the Discovery of the Source of the Nile, is reported to have shot Maula, an old chief who sided with Manwasera during the wars of 1860, and who subsequently, after chasing his relentless enemy for 5 years through Ugogo and Unyamwezi as far as Ukonongo, had the satisfaction of beheading him, was now urging the Arabs to assert their rights against a chief called Mirambo of Uyoe, in a crisis which was advancing. This Mirambo of Uyoe, it seems, had for the last few years been in a state of chronic discontent with the policies of the neighbouring chiefs. Formerly a pagazi for an Arab, he had now assumed regal power, with the usual knack of unconscionable rascals who care not by what means they step into power. When the chief of Uyoe died, Mirambo, who was head of a gang of robbers infesting the forests of Wilyankuru, suddenly entered Uyoe, and constituted himself lord paramount by force. Some feats of enterprise which he performed to the enrichment of all those who recognized his authority established him firmly in his position. This was but a beginning. He carried war through Ugara to Ukonongo, through Usagozi to the borders of Uvinza, and after destroying the populations over 3 degrees of latitude, he conceived a grievance against Mkasiwa and against the Arabs, because they would not sustain him in his ambitious projects against the ally and friend with whom they were living in peace. The first outrage which this audacious man committed against the Arabs was the halting an Ujiji-bound caravan, and the demand for 5 kegs of gunpowder, 5 guns, and 5 bales of cloth. This extraordinary demand, after expending more than a day in fierce controversy, was paid; but the Arabs, if they were surprised at the exorbitant blackmail demanded of them, were more than ever surprised when they were told to return the way they came, and that no Arab caravan should pass through his country to Ujiji except over his dead body. On the return of the unfortunate Arabs to Unyanyembe, they reported the facts to Sheikh Said bin Salim, the governor of the Arab colony. This old man, being averse to war, of course tried every means to induce Mirambo as of old to be satisfied with presents; but Mirambo this time was obdurate, and sternly determined on war unless the Arabs aided him in the warfare he was about to wage against old Mkasiwa, Sultan of the Wanyamwezi of Unyanyembe. "This is the status of affairs," said Khamis bin Abdullah. "Mirambo says that for years he has been engaged in war against the neighbouring Washensi, and has come out of it victorious. He says this is a great year with him, that he is going to fight the Arabs in the Wanyamwezi of Unyanyembe, and that he shall not stop until every Arab is driven from Unyanyembe, and he rules over this country in place of Mkasiwa. Children of Oman, shall it be so? Speak, Salim, son of Saif, shall we go to meet this Mershensi, pagan, or shall we return to our island?" A murmur of approbation followed the speech of Khamis bin Abdullah, the majority of those present being young men eager to punish the audacious Mirambo. Salim, the son of Saif, an old patriarch, slow of speech, tried to appease the passions of the young men, scions of the aristocracy of Muscat and Mutra, and Bedouins of the desert, but Khamis's bold words had made too deep an impression on their minds. Soud, the handsome Arab whom I have noticed already as the son of Said, the son of Majid, spoke. "My father used to tell me that he remembered the days when the Arabs could go through the country from Bagamoyo to Ujiji, and from Kilwa to Lunda, and from Usenga to Uganda armed with canes. Those days are gone by. We have stood the insolence of the Wagogo long enough. Swaruru of Usui just takes from us whatever he wants, And now here is Mirambo, who says after taking more than 5 bales of cloth as tribute from one man, that no Arab caravan shall go to Ujiji but over his body.